Excuse me, ma'am. The staff entrance is around back. This entrance is for members only. The country club manager, a pinch-faced man in a suit that cost more than my monthly mortgage used to, blocked my path with the practiced condescension of someone who had spent his entire career sorting people into worthy and unworthy categories based on the brand of their handbag and the polish of their shoes. What he didn't know, what no one at the prestigious Westbrook Country Club knew, was that the woman he had just dismissed as staff had closed a deal the previous week that made her one of the wealthiest self-made women in the state, and that within 3 months, his smug face would be sitting across from me in my new office, the one with my name etched on the building he thought I wasn't good enough to enter. My name is Dominique Marshall, and this is the story of how a country club snobbery became the most expensive mistake of their 87-year history. I need to take you back to the beginning to explain why I was driving an old Honda and wearing worn shoes the day I walked into that club, and why appearances have never told the full story of who I am. I grew up in Eastbrook, the wrong side of the town that Westbrook Country Club's members called home. My mother, Lorraine Marshall, worked as a housekeeper for 3 different families in the wealthy neighborhoods. My father, James, was a mechanic who ran his own small shop until arthritis made it impossible to grip a wrench. We never had much. Our house was small, our cars were used, and my clothes came from thrift stores and hand-me-downs. But my parents gave me something more valuable than designer labels. They gave me ambition, work ethic, and the unshakable belief that where you start doesn't determine where you end up. The people in those big houses, my mother would say after a long day of cleaning, they're not better than us, Dominique. They just got different cards dealt. Some of them earned what they have. Most of them inherited it and think that makes them special.
But special isn't about money.
Special is about character. My father was more blunt. Work hard, save harder, and never let anyone tell you what you can't do. Especially not some fool in a fancy suit who never built anything himself. I took their lessons to heart. I was a good student. Not naturally brilliant, but relentlessly determined. I worked part-time jobs throughout high school and college, saving every dollar I didn't absolutely need. I graduated from State University with a degree in business and $47,000 in student loans, but also with a plan. While my classmates were applying for corporate jobs, I was studying real estate. I had noticed something during my mother's years of housekeeping. Wealthy people treated their homes as investments, constantly buying, selling, renovating, upgrading. There was money to be made in that cycle, and I intended to make it. I got my real estate license at 23. For the first 2 years, I barely scraped by, selling small houses in working-class neighborhoods, earning commissions that barely covered my rent and loan payments. But I was learning the market, learning negotiation, learning how to spot value where others saw nothing. My first big break came when I was 25. An elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson was selling her home, a dilapidated Victorian in a neighborhood that was just beginning to gentrify. Other agents had passed on the listing because the house needed so much work and Mrs. Patterson refused to lower her asking price. I didn't pass on it. I saw what others missed. The neighborhood was changing, developers were circling, and that dilapidated Victorian sat on a double lot with potential for subdivision. I convinced Mrs. Patterson to let me market it differently, not as a fixer-upper for a family, but as a development opportunity. I reached out to builders and investors I had been cultivating relationships with for 2 years. The house sold for $200,000 over asking price. Mrs. Patterson was thrilled. The developer was thrilled. And I had earned a commission that paid off the rest of my student loans in one check. That sale taught me something important. Value is often invisible to people who only see what's on the surface. The other agents looked at Mrs. Patterson's house and saw peeling paint, a sagging porch, decades of deferred maintenance. I looked at the same house and saw location, potential, opportunity. It was the same lesson I would learn again at Westbrook Country Club, just applied to buildings instead of people. That sale changed everything. I realized that my real talent wasn't selling houses to families. It was seeing opportunities that others missed, connecting properties with the right buyers, and creating value where conventional thinking saw none. I started focusing exclusively on commercial real estate. It was harder, larger deals, longer timelines, more competition from established players. But it also offered bigger rewards and more room for creativity. My second big break came 2 years later, an abandoned warehouse district that the city was trying to revitalize. Most developers wanted nothing to do with it. The area had a reputation for crime, the buildings were deteriorating, and the infrastructure needed millions in upgrades. I saw something else. I saw proximity to downtown. I saw authentic industrial architecture that couldn't be replicated. I saw a generation of young professionals priced out of traditional neighborhoods who would love exposed brick and high ceilings if someone gave them the chance. I put together a consortium of small investors, people who individually couldn't afford major developments, but collectively could take a calculated risk. We bought 3 buildings for pennies on the dollar. We renovated them thoughtfully, preserving the industrial character while adding modern amenities. Within 2 years, those buildings were fully leased at rates that exceeded downtown premium spaces. The neighborhood that no one wanted became the hottest address for startups and creative agencies. Other developers followed our lead, and the entire district transformed. That deal established my reputation. Suddenly, I wasn't just a young agent hustling for commissions. I was someone who could see around corners, who could identify value where others saw only problems. Over the next decade, I built a reputation and a business. Marshall Properties started as just me working out of my apartment. Within 5 years, I had an office and 3 employees. Within 8 years, I had a commercial division handling multi-million-dollar deals. By the time I was 35, I was one of the most successful commercial real estate developers in the region. My company had facilitated over $500 million in transactions. I had a net worth that would have made my parents weep with disbelief. But you wouldn't have known it to look at me. I still drove my Honda, a 2010 Accord that I had bought used when my previous car died. It ran fine, got good gas mileage, and didn't require me to think about it. I wore comfortable clothes that rarely included designer labels. My office was nice but not ostentatious. My house was in a good neighborhood but wasn't a mansion. Because my mother had taught me well, money doesn't make you better than anyone. Character does. And character means not wasting resources on appearances when those resources could be put to better use. The day I walked into Westbrook Country Club, I was coming from a site visit. One of my biggest clients was looking for a new location for their corporate headquarters, and I had spent the morning trudging through an undeveloped property outside of town. My shoes were dusty. My clothes were practical. My car was parked in the lot, looking conspicuously ordinary among the Mercedes and BMWs. I wasn't there to join the club. I was there because I had heard rumors that Westbrook was in financial trouble, that the old money families who had sustained it for decades were dying off or moving away, that the board was quietly considering selling the property. If those rumors were true, I wanted to know. The club sat on 200 acres of prime real estate, including a golf course, tennis courts, and a historic clubhouse that dated back to the 1930s. In the right hands, it could be worth a fortune. So I had called ahead, made an appointment with the club's general manager to discuss membership opportunities, and planned to use that meeting to gather intelligence. I should have known how it would go. The manager who stopped me at the entrance was named Jeffrey Hartwell III. He was in his late 50s with silver hair and the kind of tan that comes from spending too much time on golf courses and not enough time doing actual work. He had been at Westbrook for 30 years, first as a member's son, then as an employee, working his way up through a combination of family connections and enthusiastic enforcement of the club's unwritten social hierarchies. He looked at my car first, then my shoes, then my clothes, and he made his judgment. "Excuse me, ma'am. The staff entrance is around back. This entrance is for members only." I could have corrected him. I could have explained that I had an appointment, that I was there on business, that my net worth probably exceeded his annual salary by a factor of 100.
But something stopped me.
Call it curiosity.
Call it a test.
I wanted to see how far this would go. "I'm actually here for a meeting," I said pleasantly, "with the general manager, about membership." Jeffrey's expression didn't change. "Membership inquiries are handled by appointment only." And typically, prospective members are referred by current members. Do you have a referral? I have an appointment. At 2 o'clock. The name is Marshall. He consulted a clipboard with exaggerated slowness. His eyebrows rose slightly when he found my name.
Ah,
Ms. Marshall. The way he said it made clear that he thought there had been some mistake. Very well. But I should mention that Westbrook has a particular standard for its membership. We're quite selective about who we admit. I'm sure you are. Perhaps before your meeting, you might want to. He gestured vaguely at my appearance. Freshen up. There's a powder room in the back. The staff area has facilities. I smiled. I think I'll just head to my meeting. Which way is the main office? Jeffrey stepped aside reluctantly, as if allowing a stray dog into a palace. Down the hall, to the left. Mr. Worthington is expecting you. I walked through the front door, past the grand foyer with its crystal chandeliers and oil paintings of past club presidents, and made my way to Thomas Worthington's office. Worthington was different from Jeffrey, more polished, more careful. He was the club's managing director, responsible for the day-to-day operations and, I suspected, increasingly desperate to find solutions for the club's financial problems. Ms. Marshall, thank you for coming. He shook my hand with professional warmth. Please have a seat. Can I offer you anything? Coffee? Tea? Coffee would be lovely. He poured 2 cups from a silver service and settled into his chair. So, you mentioned on the phone that you were interested in learning more about membership at Westbrook. I am. But I'm also interested in learning more about the club's current situation. Worthington's smile became slightly fixed. Our current situation? I've heard rumors that Westbrook is facing some financial challenges. Declining membership, deferred maintenance, board members considering options they wouldn't have entertained a few years ago. The smile faded entirely. I'm not sure where you heard that. I'm in commercial real estate, Mr. Worthington. Specifically, I specialize in identifying undervalued properties and finding creative solutions for owners who are struggling. I hear a lot of things. He set down his coffee cup. You're not here about membership at all, are you? I am, in a sense. I'm interested in becoming very invested in this club's future. Just perhaps not in the way you were expecting. Worthington studied me for a long moment. I could see him reassessing, taking in the worn shoes and simple clothes, weighing them against the confidence in my voice and the intelligence in my questions. What exactly are you proposing, Ms. Marshall? Nothing yet. First, I'd like to understand the situation. What are Westbrook's current financials? What's the membership trend? What's the deferred maintenance backlog? And most importantly, how serious is the board about considering a sale? Those are confidential matters. Of course. But you called me back within an hour of my initial inquiry, Mr. Worthington. You agreed to a meeting on short notice. That tells me you're looking for options. I leaned forward. I might be an option, but I need information before I can determine whether this is an opportunity worth pursuing. The silence stretched. Then Worthington made a decision. Off the record? Off the record. We're hemorrhaging money. Membership is down 40% from our peak. The average age of our members is 72. The younger generation isn't interested in country clubs. They want different things, experiences rather than exclusivity. Our maintenance backlog is north of $15 million. And the board.
He sighed.
The board has been approached by 3 different developers who want to buy the property, tear down the clubhouse, and build luxury condos. What's stopping them from selling? Sentiment, mostly. This club has been here for 87 years. Families have been members for generations. There's a faction on the board that would rather run the place into the ground than sell it to someone who would destroy its history. What if someone offered to buy it without destroying its history? Worthington's eyes sharpened. What do you mean? I mean, what if someone acquired the property, but kept the club operational, modernized it, made it relevant to a new generation, but preserved the historic elements? Would that change the board's calculus? It might, but that would require. He did some mental math. At least $60 million to acquire the property, plus another $20 million minimum for renovations and modernization. That's $80 million. What developer has that kind of capital for a country club? I smiled. Let me worry about the capital. You just give me a meeting with the board. 3 weeks later, I sat in front of Westbrook's board of directors. They were exactly what I expected. 12 men and women of a certain age, with a certain look, from a certain background. Old money, old values, old ways of thinking about who belonged and who didn't. Jeffrey Hartwell III was there too, sitting in a corner as the club's manager representative. When I walked in, his expression was priceless, a mix of confusion and dawning horror as he realized that the staff he had tried to redirect was now addressing the board as a potential buyer. I didn't acknowledge him. I had bigger concerns. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for meeting with me. I'll get straight to the point. I want to buy Westbrook Country Club. Murmurs rippled through the room. An elderly man at the head of the table, Harold Prescott, the board chairman, raised his hand for quiet. Ms. Marshall, we've received offers before. They all involved demolishing the clubhouse and building housing developments. We've rejected them all. I'm not proposing demolition, Mr. Prescott. I'm proposing preservation and transformation. I clicked to my first slide, a rendering of the clubhouse, maintained in all its historic glory, but with modern additions that complemented rather than competed with the original architecture. Westbrook has two assets, its physical property and its history. The developers who have approached you only see the property, 200 acres of prime land that could be subdivided into profitable parcels. They want to erase the history. I want to leverage it. I walked them through my vision, the clubhouse restored to its 1930s grandeur, but with updated amenities. The golf course maintained but redesigned to be more accessible and less intimidating to younger players. New facilities added, a spa, a farm-to-table restaurant, co-working spaces for remote workers who wanted a beautiful setting for their Zoom calls. The country club model is dying because it's based on exclusivity, I explained. Young professionals don't want to pay $50,000 initiation fees to play golf with people their grandparents' age. But they do want community. They want beautiful spaces. They want experiences they can share on social media. Westbrook can offer all of that if we're willing to evolve. You're talking about opening the club to anyone? One of the board members, a woman in pearls who looked like she had never encountered the word anyone before, seemed horrified. I'm talking about expanding who anyone includes. Different membership tiers. Day passes for certain amenities. Corporate packages for local businesses. We keep the exclusivity where it matters, the golf course, the dining room, but we create entry points for people who might never have considered a place like this. And the existing members? Harold Prescott asked. What happens to them? They're grandfathered in. Same rates, same privileges, same access. If anything, their experience improves because the club will finally have the resources to address that maintenance backlog. I pulled up another slide. I've identified $15 million in deferred maintenance, including the roof, the HVAC system, and the pool filtration. My plan includes addressing all of it within the first 2 years. The questions continued for another hour. Financial projections.
Timeline.
Governance structure. I had answers for all of them. I had been preparing for this meeting since the day Jeffrey Hartwell III told me to use the staff entrance. Finally, Harold Prescott called for a vote. All those in favor of entering into exclusive negotiations with Ms. Marshall for the potential sale of Westbrook Country Club? 11 hands went up. Only the woman in pearls abstained, looking like she had swallowed something unpleasant. Motion carries. Ms. Marshall, we look forward to working with you. I shook Harold's hand, gathered my materials, and walked toward the door. Jeffrey Hartwell III was waiting in the hallway. Ms. Marshall.
His voice was strained.
I wanted to apologize for any misunderstanding when you first visited. I didn't realize that I wasn't staff. I finished for him. No, you didn't. You looked at my car and my shoes and decided you knew exactly who I was and where I belonged. I was just following protocol. We have standards. You have prejudices. There's a difference. I met his eyes. I'll be honest with you, Mr. Hartwell. When I close this deal, I'm going to be making a lot of decisions about Westbrook's future, including decisions about staffing. His face went pale. I haven't decided yet what that means for you, but I want you to think about something over the next few months. Think about how many people you've turned away from this club because they didn't look right. Think about how many potential members, how many talented employees, how many opportunities walked in the front door and got sent around back because of assumptions you made in 3 seconds of observation. I started to walk away, then turn back. And think about this. The woman you dismissed as staff just offered $75 million for this building. If you had treated me with basic human dignity that day, you might have been part of my team. Instead, you're going to spend the next 3 months wondering if you're going to have a job. The deal took 3 months to close. There were complications, there always are. The woman in pearls mounted a last-minute opposition campaign, trying to convince members that I would destroy the club's character. A competing developer made a higher offer, hoping to swoop in at the last moment. Financing had to be restructured when one of my investors got cold feet. But I had learned long ago that obstacles were just problems waiting to be solved. I addressed each one methodically, patiently, with the same determination that had gotten me from a small house in Eastbrook to a $75 million real estate acquisition. On closing day, I drove my Honda to the club one last time. The new sign was already being installed. Westbrook Country Club, a Marshall Properties community. I parked in the front lot, the member lot that Jeffrey Hartwell III had once decided I didn't belong in, and walked through the front door. Thomas Worthington was waiting with champagne. "Congratulations, Ms. Marshall." Or should I say, "Congratulations, boss." I smiled. "Let's save the champagne for after we've actually turned this place around. Right now, I have a meeting to take." "A meeting? With your manager, Mr. Hartwell. Could you send him to my office?" "Your office? The one we're converting from the old president's suite. The one that's going to have my name on the door." Worthington's eyes widened with understanding. "I'll send him right up." Jeffrey Hartwell III knocked on my door precisely 5 minutes later. He looked smaller than I remembered. The silver hair was the same, the country club tan was the same, but something in his bearing had changed. The arrogance had been replaced by anxiety. He knew why he was here. "Mr. Hartwell, please sit down." He sat. "I've been reviewing the club's staffing records," I began. "Your tenure here has been extensive. 30 years. 32, ma'am. In that time, you've overseen the member experience. Greeting guests, managing events, ensuring that Westbrook standards were maintained." "I've tried my best." "Your version of standards included judging people based on their cars and their clothing, sending potential members to the staff entrance because they didn't look wealthy enough, creating an atmosphere of exclusivity that was really just snobbery in a nice suit." Jeffrey's jaw tightened. "I was following the culture of the club. The board expected you to attract and retain members. Instead, membership dropped 40% on your watch. The average member age is 72 because you systematically discouraged anyone younger or different from feeling welcome." "That's not." "I have testimonials, Mr. Hartwell. When word got out that I was acquiring the club, people reached out. People who had been interested in Westbrook but were treated the way you treated me. Young professionals who were told they might be more comfortable elsewhere. Minority families who were given tours that somehow never included the main facilities. A tech entrepreneur who was mistaken for a gardener because he was wearing jeans." I let that sink in. This club didn't decline because country clubs are dying. It declined because you drove away everyone who might have kept it alive. Jeffrey was pale now. "Ms. Marshall, I understand that my behavior toward you was inappropriate. If you had known I was wealthy, you would have treated me differently. That's exactly the problem." I leaned forward. "Your courtesy was conditional on status. Your respect was contingent on appearance. That's not how I run organizations." "Are you firing me?" I let the question hang in the air for a long moment.
No.
His head snapped up. "No. Not yet. I'm giving you a choice." I slid a document across the desk. "Option 1. You resign with a modest severance package. You leave Westbrook, find another club that values your particular approach to standards, and we part ways professionally." "And option 2? "Option 2, you stay. But you report to a new director of member experience, someone who understands that hospitality means welcoming people, not judging them. You undergo training in inclusive customer service. You work at the front entrance greeting every single person who walks through the door, regardless of what car they drove or what shoes they're wearing. And if I receive a single complaint about discriminatory treatment, you're terminated immediately with no severance. Jeffrey stared at the document. You want me to be a greeter? I want you to learn what you should have learned 30 years ago, that every person who walks through that door is a potential member, a potential employee, a potential partner. Their worth isn't written on their clothes. It's revealed in how they're treated when given a chance. This is humiliating. No, Mr. Hartwell. What's humiliating is spending 30 years building a career on judging people's appearance and calling it standards. What I'm offering you is an opportunity to become better. I pushed the document closer. Take the night. Decide by morning. He took the document and left without another word. The next morning, Jeffrey Hartwell III reported for duty as Westbrook's front entrance greeter. I watched him for the first few weeks, curious whether he would actually change or whether he would go through the motions while seething with resentment. The answer, surprisingly, was neither. He struggled. You could see it in his face every time someone arrived in an old car or casual clothes, the old instincts flaring up, the automatic judgments forming. But he pushed through them. He smiled. He said, "Welcome to Westbrook." He held doors and offered assistance and treated every arrival like they belonged. 3 months into the new regime, he requested a meeting. "Ms. Marshall, I owe you an apology." "You already apologized. Several times. Not for how I treated you. For how I've been treating people for 3 decades. He looked genuinely pained. "I've been standing at that entrance every day, greeting everyone who comes through. And I've started noticing things. The woman in the beat-up minivan who turns out to be a pediatric surgeon. The young guy in flip-flops who just sold his startup for $50 million. The family in matching t-shirts who are celebrating their grandmother's 90th birthday. And I was wrong. About all of it. About what wealth looks like, about who belongs, about everything I thought I knew about people." He met my eyes. "You didn't fire me when you had every right to. You gave me a chance to learn something I should have learned a long time ago. I don't know how to thank you for that. You can thank me by being better. And by training the rest of the staff to be better. I'd like that. I'd like to help build something different here." I promoted Jeffrey to Assistant Director of Member Experience 6 months later. He became one of my most passionate advocates for inclusive hospitality, giving training sessions about the assumptions people make and the members they lose because of them. His favorite teaching tool was his own story, the day he mistook the future owner of the club for a member of the cleaning staff. "I looked at her shoes and thought I knew everything I needed to know," he would tell new employees. "I was wrong. And that mistake could have cost me my career and this club its future. Don't make the same mistake I did." Westbrook's transformation took 2 years. We restored the historic clubhouse, preserving its 1930s character while adding modern amenities. The original oak paneling was refinished. The hand-painted ceiling murals were restored by specialists who flew in from Italy. The Grand Ballroom, which had hosted debutante balls for 80 years, was updated with state-of-the-art audiovisual equipment without compromising its historic integrity. We redesigned the golf course to be more beginner-friendly, with a new Executive 9 that could be played in under 2 hours. The driving range was expanded and modernized. A golf simulator was added for year-round practice. And we created a junior program that introduced hundreds of local children to the sport, including many from Eastbrook, the neighborhood I had grown up in. The new amenities attracted demographics that Westbrook had never reached before. A wellness center with yoga studios, meditation rooms, and a full-service spa. A farm-to-table restaurant that sourced ingredients from local farms and won regional culinary awards within its first year. A co-working space with high-speed internet and private meeting rooms, where remote workers could escape their home offices and work in surroundings that felt like a luxury resort. Most importantly, we changed the culture. This was harder than the physical renovations. Buildings could be updated with enough money and expertise. Attitudes required something more delicate: patience, consistency, and the willingness to lead by example. I started with training. Every staff member, from the groundskeepers to the restaurant servers to the golf pros, went through a comprehensive program on inclusive hospitality. We talked about unconscious bias, about the assumptions people make based on appearance, about the members and opportunities we lose when we judge before we welcome. Jeffrey Hartwell, once my harshest example, became my most passionate trainer. He would stand in front of new employees and tell them the story of the day he mistook the future owner for cleaning staff. I looked at her car, a Honda that had seen better days. I looked at her shoes, comfortable, practical, dusty from a site visit. And I decided I knew everything I needed to know about her. He would pause, letting the moment land. I was wrong, and that mistake could have ended my career and this club's future. Ms. Marshall didn't fire me. She gave me a choice: leave with a severance package or stay and learn to do better. I chose to stay, and I've spent every day since then trying to unlearn 30 years of bad habits. The new hires always listened intently. Some of them, I knew, had experienced the same kind of dismissal Jeffrey had once dished out. Others had been the ones doing the dismissing. Both groups needed to hear the same message: everyone deserves dignity, regardless of appearance. The new membership tiers attracted young professionals who wanted access to beautiful facilities without the full country club commitment. Corporate packages brought local businesses for team retreats and client entertainment. Community events, wine tastings, yoga on the lawn, family movie nights brought in people who had never set foot in a country club before. Membership doubled within 18 months. The average member age dropped to 52. Revenue increased by 340%. And the original members? The ones who had worried that opening the club would destroy its character? Most of them loved it. They loved seeing young families on the grounds. They loved the improved facilities and the better food. They loved that their club was thriving instead of slowly dying. Even the woman in pearls, Mrs. Constance Whitmore, I learned her name eventually, came around. I found her one afternoon teaching a group of children how to play croquet on the lawn, explaining the rules with more patience and warmth than I would have expected from her board meeting persona. "Ms. Marshall," she said when she saw me watching. "These are the Hendersons' grandchildren. The Hendersons joined last month. They're from the new corporate membership program." I know the Hendersons. Tech startup founders, right?
Yes.
At first I thought. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I thought they wouldn't fit in. But their children are delightful. And Patricia Henderson has become one of my favorite bridge partners. People are often more than they appear, Mrs. Whitmore. Indeed they are. She gave me a long look. Including you, as it turns out. I voted against your acquisition, you know. I know. I was wrong. This place is more alive than it's been in 30 years. She smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes. Thank you for not destroying us. Thank you for being willing to evolve. Last month, I was featured in Forbes as one of their self-made women, a profile on my career, my investments, and the Westbrook transformation in particular. The journalist asked me about the incident that started it all, being mistaken for staff and sent to the back entrance. Was that what motivated you to buy the club? She asked. Revenge. I thought about it carefully before answering. It wasn't revenge. It was recognition. When Jeffrey Hartwell told me to use the staff entrance, he showed me exactly who Westbrook was and exactly what it could become with different leadership. But there must have been some satisfaction in proving him wrong. There was satisfaction in building something better. The proving wrong part was just a bonus. I smiled. My mother used to say that the people in the big houses aren't better than us. They just got dealt different cards. What she didn't say, because she didn't know it yet, was that sometimes the cards change. Sometimes the person in the old Honda turns out to hold a winning hand. And now you're the one in the big house. Now I own the big house. But I hope I'm not the kind of person who would ever look at someone's shoes and decide I knew their worth. I paused. That's the thing about wealth and status. They're not proof of character. They're just circumstances. Character is revealed in how you treat people when you think no one important is watching. And how did Westbrook treat you when they thought you weren't important?
Badly.
But they're treating people better now. That's the only revenge that actually matters. Not destroying the thing that hurt you, but transforming it into something that won't hurt others the same way. The interviewer closed her notebook. Last question. Any advice for people who've experienced what you experienced? Being dismissed, underestimated, sent to the back in trance because of how they looked. I thought about my parents, about Mrs. Patterson and her Victorian house, about every deal I had closed and every obstacle I had overcome, about Jeffrey Hartwell III, standing at the front entrance now, greeting every arrival with genuine warmth because someone had given him a chance to learn. Walk through the front door anyway, I said, and then build something so undeniable that the door becomes yours. The country club manager said the staff entrance was in the back. I walked in the front door anyway. 3 months later, my name was on the building. And now, every person who walks through that door, regardless of their car, their shoes, or their parent status, is greeted with the same words. Welcome to Westbrook. We're so glad you're here. That's the legacy I'm proudest of. Not the money, not the acquisition, not the Forbes profile. Just those words. We're glad you're here. Because everyone deserves to hear them. Especially the people the old Westbrook would have sent around back. My mother came to visit last month. She's 78 now, retired from housekeeping for over a decade, but she still remembers every detail of the houses she used to clean. I gave her a tour of Westbrook, the clubhouse, the grounds, the restaurant where she insisted on ordering the most expensive item on the menu just to see if anyone would give her a look. No one did. The server treated her like royalty, because that's how we treat everyone now. Afterward, we sat on the terrace overlooking the golf course, drinking iced tea and watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Your father would have loved this, she said quietly. I know. Not the fancy stuff. He never cared about fancy stuff. She smiled, remembering. He would have loved that you took a place that was built on keeping people out and turned it into a place that welcomes them in. That's what you taught me, Mom. That people aren't their cars or their clothes or their addresses. People are how they treat others. I taught you that. Every day. Every time you came home from cleaning houses and still had respect in your voice when you talked about the families you worked for. Every time you reminded me that wealth didn't make someone better, just different. Every time you showed me that dignity wasn't something you had to earn, it was something everyone deserved. She reached over and squeezed my hand. You did good, baby. You did real good. We sat there until the sun went down, 2 women from Eastbrook enjoying the view from a place we were never supposed to belong. But belonging isn't about permission. It's about presence. It's about walking through the front door, even when someone tells you to go around back. It's about building something so undeniable that the door becomes yours. And then making sure it stays open for everyone who comes after.